G'day viewers, welcome back to the channel. This time, let's finish your bench vise. Stick around. So if this is your first time here, welcome to the channel. I hope I can teach you something, you like what you see, and consider subscribing. Now in the last video, we made the mechanism, the base basically, for this vise. This time we're going to correct a few things and then put all the vise jaws and everything together. The first thing, which I actually did in the interim, when I was putting it together, I noticed, yeah, the lead screw is slightly, just a lot of it off center. So only one way. So it obviously pulled when welding. So what I did was I grabbed a piece of, the only thing I had that had fit on hand was 5x30. Jammed that in there, and then using that as a lever, put a bit more space, put a few more spaces in there, and left it there for like a few days, just to give it a chance to move a little bit. Did it work? Well, we'll find out in a minute. Okay, let's see what happens. Oh, it's looking promising. Let me take this out. Not just yet, okay. Nope, that's not working. Okay. Well, that's in there. And now it's out. Now, without the fillers, how much difference did that make? Exactly none. Which means I either live with it being off just a little bit, or I cut right around here, move it a little bit, re-weld it. I think I'm just going to live with it being off a bit. It will still work. Yeah, kind of binds up just there, but not for long. Yeah, 10-15 mil it binds. The rest of it, it's fine. So I think I'm just going to live with that. So that would mean our next move would be to drill some holes in these pieces to accept the jaws. Having said that, I do have one small problem, in that these holes are kind of strange. Now they're an 8mm hole, but that's a countersunk screw, and clearly that's not going to work. However, okay, it's super long, don't worry about that, but that's your standard cap screw, and well, that's not going to work either. So I'll need to figure something out as to what I'm going to use for fastening, but in the meantime, it doesn't stop me drilling holes in the jaw plates. Now you can probably see from the markings, that's how I want the plates oriented. There's a specific reason for that, because if you have a close look across the top, let's get a straight edge. Remember that problem we had with the steel last time? It's not square. There we go. So I've got the high point in the centre, so that the jaws will sit to the top of that high point. So basically, that is how they're going to sit, but up that way. So, need to get them centered, and then center those on there, so that I can then pop holes underneath. So I can do one at a time. That. Like that. Just going to carefully lay that over. It's fine that way. It's fine that way. Put some marks through it. And that one's still got the paper. Alright. Scriber. Yes, I know I effectively just scribed it, but there we go. And yeah, they're covered in this grease. That's not a bad thing. Alright, let's drill. they're not the bolts I intend to use. I was just using those just to make sure everything lined up right, and as you saw, well, they do. Great. Next step is to actually get some bolts that are going to work in there. And then after that, well, we need to bend these. Well, I've got that all assembled as a single unit, I've gone ahead and set it at the front there. That's pretty much right at the front. And then I came around and then I centered it this way. Basically just using this and get it set the same distance from each side. Squared it up like so. That's nice and square. Then I just threw a couple of tacks on it just to hold it in place. It's there's no strength in that at all. It's just holding it in place. But as you probably noticed, there's a filler piece under there because, well, that's obviously smaller than that. And I still haven't decided whether I'm just going to weld the jaw supports onto here or space them out. I still haven't decided that yet. I'll see what happens when we bend these pieces. And speaking of bending these pieces, you see I've marked these, so they've got marks in opposite directions. They're all marked at the 50mm mark, and then I've put like an arrow basically telling me which way to bend it, because again, the angles are all off. But that's our next move. There we go. No, of course I didn't just bend that with my bare hands. I took them down to work and used a 30-ton press. And this little contraption. And just in case you're interested in this, it's just a couple of bits of, 3 bits actually, of 25mm round bar. It used to be a go-kart axle. That's way back in the day. If you want to go and have a look, there's a link up here. And I put these 2 spacers. They're just a bit of round pipe, round tube. Just welded them into there so that fits into there nicely on both ends. So that once it's in there, it's not going to move around when I start putting pressure on it. And notice here and here, there's little notches, because you saw the marks on the blanks. That was so I could line them up, and I knew where the bend had to be. And this one is again just a piece of the 25mm round bar with a bit of flat on the top of it, so that'd register on the press piston and wouldn't want to walk and wander all over the place. It'd just go bang, straight down. And now, we have our jaw pieces. They go there like that. Weld them onto there. Weld up through here. Cut excess off. And then we put a plate in here. But we'll get to that. First thing I'm going to do is set up and weld those in. Well, that's those ones tacked in. I still can't do this one. I suppose I could, but I kind of want filler pieces. Hang on a sec. That actually matches up pretty well, so I'm going to throw these on too. And now to fully weld it, but I'll do that off camera. I'm not going to bore you with that, it's just welding. But as it sits there on its own, you saw me move it in and out, and those jaws go back together nice. So I'm going to pull those jaws out, pull that out of there, weld everything. And yeah, there was a reason I didn't want to weld these on yet, because I've still got to drill holes in them. Before I do that, I've got to drill holes in this. Before I do that, I've got to trim it to fit. And before I do that, I need to center this. Because if I leave it as it is right now, seeing this animation, the further the screw goes in, the more it wants to kick sideways. And then it doesn't line up. So it's always going to be binding. So I cut it open around here, which means this will now move. I can move that. So I'm going to space it here, re-weld the back, and move on. Alright, I think that is about as centered as it's going to get. Top to bottom's pretty good. That slides in. Screw goes in. It's nice and centered. Now I can mark this up. But I still need to take these off because I've got to drill holes. Before I do that, I'm going to trim this down, drill holes in this, then mark them on the vise. is our finished piece, but small problem. With that bolt in, that hole does not line up. There we go. It's off by a few millimeters, and the jaws are exactly where they were. So something went wrong. So I made another one. So let's bolt that one on. Oh look, it lines up perfectly. I also ground the welds off the front face of this piece so that will sit flat, which is not at the moment because that jaw's protruding, and that won't move back because there's a weld down here. And yes, everything's wet because storms. So everything's flash rusted. That's alright, it's nothing a bit of cleaning can't fix. But I'm going to have to clean these welds off the sides just to make everything fit. Nothing's going to be in the way there. Just those two there. Sit it back. Then retack the jaw supports in place. Then we can keep going. Going to be welded on there eventually. We'll deal with that in a bit. Probably saw, that extraction wasn't exactly smooth. It took a bit more effort than I was hoping for. So my guess is, when I was welding these, it's caused intrusion inside, and that's why it's binding. Let's see if we can have a look. Can't see anything. No, I cannot see anything. So I can either live with that, grind this down a bit until it works, or cut this center section out again and clean up whatever's in there. definitely deformed. I can't feel anything, or it's in slightly. I can just feel it as just a slight, yeah, it's bubbled in, it's deformed in, so I'm going to have to get the power file finger sander, whatever you want to call it, into that and just take a smidgen off each of those sides just to balloon it out a bit. So was cutting this out a waste of time? No, it wasn't, because it wasn't lined up properly, and well, I couldn't get anything in there if this was still in there. There is a moral to this story. Don't fully weld anything until everything is ready to be welded. And after about 20 minutes of sanding, well, everything, inside here, outside here, you can see where it's rubbing there, but it slides in nicely up till there. Good news about that, get about 10 mil before it hits, well, there you go. That's closed. If I can slide it that far, well, that means it's going to wind in that far. Right. Now put this back in. Probably now is going to be the easiest time to do this, because I can wind that in and I know it'll be centered then. Okay, with just the corners tacked up, let's see how we go. That's not bad. As I said, there's a little bit of binding, starts right there. That's not too bad, that'll self-clearance after a while. Right, can we get on with this now? Okay, now that I've that done again, I'm going to go and weld all this and re-weld this up here. Well, mechanically, that's it. Cosmetically, it's got a long way to go, because I still need to fill these in, and I still need a base plate, a mounting plate. But as you saw, okay, it's a long spanner, but one finger operates it, which means it's dead smooth. Oh, there's a bit of a glitch there. That's alright. I didn't get around to cutting these down yet, but basically, yeah, I have to cut them down so they fit inside that inner tube. Then I'll have two washers, two inside, two outside, and everything will be oiled and greased and everything once all the cosmetics done. And it's done. Took a little bit longer than I expected, but not as long as I expected, if that makes any sense at all. But there we go. Well, there's another one done. Yay me. But we're not done. You notice there was like it went from, oh, it's finished, it's together, to, oh, it's finished. Yeah, well, I did record all that. That's coming out in a separate video. I just wanted to show now that it's finished. But yeah, there's another one coming. So thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, if you learned something, hit that like button down there. And while you're there, there's a share button there. You can share it on all kinds of social media. Go do that. Hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you know when the next one's coming. And I'll see you on the next one.